Hey guys, welcome back to the last episode in phase one of the Dream 80 before we get to start having fun. At the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you what our next plan is for phase two, but for right now, I'll recap that we bought a farm, we got it financed, we fixed a title issue, we've closed on the property, and now what do we do before we go get busy having fun on the property and enjoying it for the reasons that we purchased it. And I think the most important part before you get boots on the ground and start doing some improvements or projects or anything that you want to do out there is just devising a plan and setting some goals. I think trail cameras are a really important part. If you can get trail cameras on prior to closing on the property or even hunting the property in advance with a liability waiver from the current owner allowing you to do that, that really allows you to start to get to know the property, start to identify potential issues or opportunities, and think about your plan in the future. But devising a plan should always start with getting to know the property, shed hunting it, walking it, enjoying it with your friends and family, talking about ideas and what you're going to do, and it is just one of the most exciting things that you can do, especially on a hunting property. Watching it also from 30,000 feet. You know, if you have the opportunity to fly over it in a plane or with a drone or look at it from Google Earth or any other type of mapping feature, look at how other folks are accessing their property that might be moving animals into your property or into a secluded sanctuary, and then just looking at it from a high point from 30,000 feet or the top of a hill and just watching how the wildlife currently uses the property and figuring out how to enhance that for your future intentions, if that is indeed wildlife or building or cabin site or whatever you may be doing on the property. The second thing is take a look at a good map and look at some topography. There's some great mapping free trials out there or very cheap to enter apps, or like I said, Google Maps or Google Earth is really good. Just to take a look at the topography and the access of the property, the neighboring landowners, and looking at a map and drawing out what your future intentions might be of that property. When I look back at the Bill Winke series, some things that are really important were access. If it's from a hunting perspective, how am I going to get where I want to get without spooking the animals that I intend to pursue on that property? And then two, what habitat improvements can I make before I go and add a bunch of food plots and attract a bunch of animals to that property that are going to make my habitat improvements very difficult? So number one, look at a good map and devise a plan. Number two, look at access and locations where you want to do things in advance from a map perspective and from the aerial perspective, as well as how the property is currently being used by the current animals that are out there. And then looking at the habitat improvements from a map and then on site. Going in there and looking at what kind of trees can be removed from where. Are those trees valuable to help pay for some of those projects? Are there invasives that do need to be managed before you go in and cut down some trees or clear out some areas or put in a nice pad for a building site or a shed or a camper? And then number four is gates and fencing. If you intend on this being your sanctuary and your place to go to get away from everybody else and out of town, you want to make sure there's a good gate, that there's posted signs, that the neighbor's cattle or horses are fenced out to make sure if there is any dogs or anything running around the neighborhood, that you find out where they're from and nip that in the butt by talking to those landowners that own those animals and telling them what your intentions are and being kind but stern enough to make sure that your kindness isn't mistaken for weakness. And that you intend on doing this with this property, and that it is yours and that you did spend a lot of money on it and it is a big deal to you and your family. So putting up some simple posted signs. From experience, I would use metal ones and attach them to a metal fence post via a big heavy plastic zip strip, double that, or a metal attachment. Going and buying a cheap sign from a hardware store and nailing it to the tree. One, usually kills the tree because you're putting a nail into the cambium layer of the tree, and two, the signs usually fade, so you find yourself doing it a year or two down the road. If you find a good UV protected steel sign or aluminum sign at a local hardware store or Amazon, those can be very beneficial, as well as put up cameras to make sure no one's trespassing on your property. The last thing I'll bring up is that topic alone. If there's people that already have tree stands in there that are trespassing on the property that have not been apprehended to use that property as their own and didn't own that property, you might have to kick someone off it. You might have to have a discussion on renewing a lease or increasing a lease and or taking hunting rights or access rights out of that lease. So making it known that it is your property, being stern about that, as well as posting it, fencing it, and starting to devise a plan before you actually start going in there and firing up a chainsaw or a bulldozer or a skid steer or whatever your intentions are with the property. Just having a really good plan and then also clearly defining your goals, I think, are the last step in the process before you go actually put boots and equipment on the ground. And that's what we're going to do with the Dream 80. So I'll end this phase of this series by telling you that next in line we're going to go put boots on the ground on the 80, take a look at the current deer quality that's out there. We intend on setting the property up as just the dream perfect hunting property, and it's already got some really good deer on it. We want to show you those, show you what our goals and intentions are for the future, show you where and why we're going to put those access points and food plots and tree stand locations and box blinds and water sources in where we're going to put them and for what reason, and show you a little bit more about the property with boots and equipment on the ground. I want to thank you very much for watching this phase of the Dream 80 series, and if you like what we're doing, give us a like and a subscribe so we know that we're doing a great job. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.